Today we're going to be talking about the hybrid workplace and how to make sure that it's fair and balanced for everyone across the board. Hello, I'm Michael Robinson and welcome to my channel. Don't forget to click the subscribe button to be notified of upcoming shows. Today we're going to be talking about the hybrid workforce, the dynamics of this evolving platform, what it means for you, what it means for employers, and what it means for the future of the workforce, even beyond COVID-19. Now, the hybrid workforce has been in the works for quite a long time, even before 9/11. Actually, 9/11 was one of the things that made us begin to look at the workforce from a different perspective when we realized that an office building or an office in general was very vulnerable to many different things beyond a terrorist attack. It was vulnerable to power shortages. It was vulnerable to being hacked. It was vulnerable because of many different factors that are evolving in our economy. But one of the things that has happened is COVID-19 has accelerated this whole process whereby we're looking at the workforce from a reimagined perspective. Reimagining that a portion of the workforce is working from home while another portion is working in the office. Maybe this is interchangeable, maybe this is permanently fixed. It all depends on the kind of company that you run or the kind of needs that your organization or company has based on its business model. But the hybrid workforce has its advantages and disadvantages. Many advantages for employees who see the opportunity of being at home, probably taking care of their kids or having more flexibility with their time, but also for the employer who sees that he or she can cut his or her overhead by quite a bit. You no longer have to have a desk for Susan or John or Paul. You don't have to have a computer that's running. You don't have to pay for electricity or other kinds of overhead expenses that can be incumbent on businesses, especially small businesses that are trying to cut corners across the board. But this kind of workforce is really more prevalent in medium to large size companies who see the advantage of having the flexibility of people working outside of the company. Now, there are many responsibilities that employers have to their employees, and we'll talk about that. And there are responsibilities that employees have to their employers from not just the hybrid perspective, but the hybrid at home perspective. Because when you're working outside of the office, the dynamics change because you're no longer interacting with your supervisor and your colleagues in the same manner in which you're interacting from home. So we'll talk about that in the next couple of videos. But today we want to focus on the employer's perspective, how to make sure that you create a hybrid environment that is healthy for your production of whatever deliverables you provide to your clients, and how to make sure that your employees are responsive. Not just the ones in the office, because people in the office oftentimes can be resentful that people are working from home and they're not working from the home environment. But you also have employees who like the idea of going into the office, who like the journey away from home and interacting with people at the workplace. So there are many dynamics involved in the whole process of the hybrid. We'll talk about that, and we'll give you tips on how you can ensure that from an employer's perspective, you're doing everything to make sure that your hybrid at home is being as productive as your team in the workplace. Starting with number one. The first thing you want to do is shore up your infrastructure. And I'm talking about your data infrastructure. Because data security these days is paramount for the success of any business. We've heard too many times whereby creative people are finding ways of hacking into companies and holding the data hostage and thereby providing a lull in productivity from that company's perspective. Now, you don't want that. So you want to invest in an infrastructure that is protected. Now, not everything is 100% protected. It's almost like the vaccine, right? But you want to make sure that you're 99.5% protected from data hacks or breaches into your security system. And ensuring that allows you to then have some level of confidence that your team working from the home isn't vulnerable to hacking into your systems, hacking into your software, hacking into your protocols or whatever they might be. Number two, you want to make sure that your team at home has all the tools and equipment necessary for full production, whether it is computers or smartphones or applications or access to data that he or she needs. Whatever supplies that person might be using at work, he or she should have access to at home, including the use of telephones. If he or she is going to be using a telephone, you want to pay for the expenses of that individual. And of course, he or she should show proof of use before having the reimbursement given to them. But the bottom line is make sure that the tools are available for use at home. Number three, make sure you set clear guidelines for production, deliverables, and timeline. Because you want to be sure that that person, when working from home, is being able to give you the same quality and level of work that would have been given in the office. And the only way to do that is by communication. I've always said there are three things that are crucial for making sure that at-home work is as effective as working in the office, and that's setting production levels, setting benchmarks, and also making sure that the level of communication is clear and consistent across the board. And that takes me to number four. How are you going to be communicating with each other? Be clear about that. Is it via emails so that there's an email thread? Or are you going to be making telephone calls? Or are you going to be texting? Is texting an option? Or are there other modes of communication within your company that person could be using? So be clear about the level of communication, because that's kind of crucial. So one of the things I've seen often is miscommunication, whereby someone is sending an email and the other person doesn't get it, or it goes to a spam folder accidentally or whatever. So be sure that you're clear about how you want to communicate with each other on a regular basis. Certainly telephone calls are great. Emails are also great. My suggestion is that if it's an important call and you're making that call to your employee, make sure you follow up with an email outlining what the call was about, because calls are not recorded, but emails are recorded. And it's a good way of tracking the communication between you and your staff. If there is a dispute in future, you want to make sure that there's a third party who can decipher that there is communication between the two parties involved. Number five, give effective feedback to your staff on how he or she is doing. Because a lot of times we keep things inside as managers and we don't emote what we're thinking and feeling. It's very important that you're clear and concise about how you feel that person is performing. Number one, it does a lot in terms of getting your thoughts and feelings out to that person. And number two, that person knows exactly where you stand and what he or she needs to do to correct performance levels. So giving feedback is very, very crucial. And believe it or not, employees are looking for that. They want to make sure they're doing the right thing for the most part. And communicating with them effectively is crucial, especially when they're working at home. It's easier to tell someone in the workplace what's happening, or it's easier to have an expression whereby the person can read your body language or read your expression that you might not be too happy with what he or she is doing. But when the person is off-site, it's a whole different dynamic. So giving effective feedback is crucial. Number 6, you want to set regular meetings with your staff members, those on-site and those off-site, because communication within a team is probably one of the most important things. I mean, between a manager and a worker is one thing, and it's important. But within the framework of a team, it saves time and money for organizations because it eliminates redundancy, it eliminates miscommunication, and it eliminates the ability for someone to misinterpret what is being said. So if everything is communicated in real time, whether you have Zoom meetings or whether you bring everybody into the office once a week, these weekly meetings are crucial. It's also making sure that, you're crossing the T's and dotting the I's, and that, A knows what B is doing and vice versa. Because all of this is absolutely one of the crucial elements in the reasons I've seen in the past where hybrid offices fall into disarray, a lack of communication. And number 7, set clear benchmarks for your team at home and at the office, of course, of what your expectations regarding production level is like, regarding timelines, regarding the level of production, so that you can measure this periodically, meaning that you can look at the weekly production of that person and judge whether your company is getting what it needs based on the production that this person is giving to the organization. Because this is where the level of accountability becomes clear from the employee's perspective, right? Making sure that that person is producing at a maximum and giving the company what it needs to ensure that its bottom line is met on a timely basis. So these are the ideas that we need to think about when we're looking at the hybrid office. There is a certain platform that we have while we are working in the office, a platform for instant communication as managers. You open your door and you say to someone, oh, I need this, oh, I need that. But when somebody's at home, the platform changes because suddenly you have to pick up the phone and call, or you have to send an email or a text message. And it's not as instantaneous as being able to reach across the door and say to somebody, I need help, or I need this production or this item managed right away. So there are disadvantages for managers having a hybrid at home, while there are disadvantages for that employee working from home. I mean, it's great to have the possibility of flexibility, right, with your time. But the reality is that you're not in the office and you're not as competitive. And I say this word not because I want to scare you, but listen, all employees compete with each other within a workspace. We don't talk about it openly, but that's what happens. You're competing with John or Susan, right? And you're measured based on probably their production or their level of production. And therefore, you want to be sure that you are competitive. You want to be sure that you're getting the right promotion and increases, performance reviews that are flattering to you. And oftentimes when you work outside of the office, there becomes this invisible wall that prevents you from being seen effectively than if you are in the office on a daily basis. So that's one of the disadvantages of being a hybrid, working at the home office versus working in the full office. But nonetheless, we'll navigate this. Believe it or not, it is the future of the workforce, and we're going to have to find ways in which we mitigate these problems, break down these invisible walls, and ensure that communication and production, benchmarks, and all the necessary dynamics involved in the hybrid office is maintained moving forward. So don't forget, click the like button, let me know what your thoughts are, or subscribe to my channel for updates on shows that are upcoming in regards to the workforce. I'm Michael Robinson, and remember, think like an entrepreneur and you'll succeed in your career.